emigration and by immigration. And I think this will also help people change their mind. If refugees from other countries, from poor countries, start knocking at our doors in large numbers, I think that will change the public opinion about world food security and productivity of agriculture.
Thank you. Next question was Paul.
Paul Leonard from BSF. Again, thank you for an excellent session. I'd like to make a couple of observations and maybe identify one or two white elephants in the room that we don't want to talk about. Yet again, we've had wonderful contributions from Germany and from the UK. Sorry to say it. This is all about green shoots, and I do believe that there are very good intellectual green shoots coming from those two parts of Europe. What about other parts of Europe? I mean, there are some very bright people out there. There are wonderful institutions right across our region, but time and time again, it comes back to the debate in the UK, the debate from places like Humboldt University in Berlin, but we're not harvesting talent from other countries. We need to get this a more pan-European debate, and simply you don't hear that, where the reality of agriculture, which I believe is the title of this section, comes from, is from the debate in Brussels. Reality of agriculture is actually CAP. It's what's going on in Nagoya now on biodiversity, and it's unfortunately what Sean Rickard referred to as 1990s mindset. Too much food, and it's very organic. If we look at the thinking that comes out of DG Environment, I recently went to an event there, and honestly, I could not tell who was from IFOAM, the International Forum for Organic Manufacturers, and who was from DG Environment. They were good mates, they had a party atmosphere, and this is the thinking that is actually driving the reality of our agriculture. And what we see is legislation trickling down to the farm level. Meanwhile, my question to us as a whole audience is, are we sufficiently focused and smart to face up against our opposition, which is highly coordinated and well-resourced? When we look at, for example, a breakfast I had the other day with somebody from Friends of the Earth, every time I asked a question, she said, well, that was a colleague or another who knew the answer. And eventually I said, well, how many colleagues do you have? She had 25 colleagues sitting in the office in Brussels. I look at my own organization, we have 100,000 employees. We have one person looking after biotech in Brussels and one person looking after plant protection products. And that's a relatively new thing for us as an industry, to have people focusing at the source of the problem. I actually think there's some very good green shoots, and we're doing a fantastic job with very limited resources at the ECPA, at the national associations, but ultimately we're talking here politics, and are we putting the right resources and the right importance to tackling the source of the problem?
I mean, it's not really a question. I agree with every word you said, but I think really sometimes you have to have more courage, you know. I think that people such as Friends of the Earth and the like, they are at their most vulnerable when you ask them what their solution would be. It's easy to attack other people, easy to point out problems, etc., but ask them what their solution is, push them against a wall, and then they have to start waffling about window boxes full of food and people becoming vegetarians, and that's what you need to expose, really. Their solutions are absolutely hopeless unless you want to live in a teepee halfway up a hill in Wales.
I only have a brief comment. I think one thing we can do is what we do today. We take the biodiversity argument and turn it around, because it's in favor of productivity growth in world agriculture, not in favor of organic farming.
I would like to get back to a bit more to the facts and figures, because there is a major issue that we haven't been addressing maybe this morning, but is underneath, I believe, which is the farm income, which is declining. Since 2002, there is figures from Eurostat, which is about 1/3 the decline in farms income, in net farm income. And I would like to know also if we have some figures about how much is declining agricultural investment, because this fact linked to the fact that more than 1/3 of the farmers are over 65 years old is making them less interested in innovation, in investing in their farms, in remaining competitive in the long term. So this is one key fact for me, which is affecting to the rest, and also it's a bit in contradiction for the good news for the farmers, at least for the European ones. And here I would like to also to bring a bit more the discussion that they have in the European Commission. As we saw in the debate, and this is also coming in the future proposal for the CAP, they are just focusing on retaining or holding the potential, the agricultural potential, but never enhancing or thinking about increasing productivity. This is not in their minds. This discussion for the European Commission is over. So I would like your input for that, and what could we do in terms of bringing a new fresh air to the Commission, because I believe we have still the handicap in the starting point of the European regulatory process.
Well, the answer is the same as before. We have to continue to educate the public, but we are at a disadvantage, competitive disadvantage with some of the NGOs. As Paul rightly pointed out, they have tremendous resources that they can use for that purpose, and we don't have that yet. So we have to be innovative in how we educate the public.
One has to, I think, answer this in two ways. Let me answer it in a theoretical way first before we get round to a reality. The truth of the matter is that the CAP is not the friend of innovation, not the friend of highly efficient, productive farming. What the CAP essentially does is to keep in business many people who otherwise wouldn't be there, many people who aren't particularly good farmers. They turned out to be the sons of farmers. It denies, through the pushing up of land prices, the ability for younger, more innovative people to get into the industry. The whole thing really is not very helpful. Of course, and I should say something else though, and I know the figures for Britain and I don't know them for individual countries in Europe, but it will be the same sort of pattern. In Britain, 85% of the value added comes from just 20% of the farmers. We do have a long tail of what I call lifestyle or hobby farmers. They are people who are kept there by the support system, and spent many of my years as chief economist for the National Farmers Union, so I know all about these figures and how they're fiddled. And of course it was very much in their interests to bring in these part-time incomes from these part-time farmers who are actually earning their living in other sectors of the economy, and to tell you how hard up farmers are and what a tough life it is. Of course there are some hard up farmers, as there are in any industry. There are also many millionaires, particularly when you look at the value of their assets and their land. And we've got ourselves in a ridiculous position where for many farmers, their customer is the government. If they have a problem, it's the government's not giving them enough support. If there is an issue to be dealt with, the government should pay them more. And of course, one big fear is that what will come up in the next 2 years as we are once again looking at the future of the CAP, they're going to have the audacity to argue that because the world is running short of food, they need to be supported a great deal more. The reality is, of course, they've supported less. You'd have probably more food production, you'd probably have a better countryside, and you'd certainly have it produced more efficiently because you would have fewer farmers. You take the United Kingdom as an example. You're absolutely right. There isn't enough investment going in agriculture. Because we keep too many farmers in agriculture who are just hanging on by their fingertips, and the people who would expand, could expand, would like to invest, they can't do so because these other people are blocking their way. And a parallel debate really. We're trying to, there's a group of farmers trying to get planning permission in the United Kingdom to put in a 8,000 cow dairy herd. They're going to invest £34 million in this, Marvellous that someone wants to invest in agriculture, yet, all we get talk about is, well, the little cows won't be out in the fields too often or something such rubbish. But now we come to the reality of it. They're not going to remove the CAP. It's not going to go. One is going to have to put up with the reality that at best it will be reduced somewhat. So we're back really to, one has to keep saying what one says. If one believes it, one has to try at the edges to get politicians, to get everyone connected with the industry to be changing their mindset, to be thinking in a slightly different way. You won't change Rome in a day, but it just might mean that there'll be a slightly bigger cut in the level of support for farmers in 2013. It just might mean that that will lead to perhaps faster change and faster thinking. But, you know, we're all the victims of what we did yesterday. And the CAP, once a very effective policy, has certainly outlived its usefulness and now becomes a hindrance rather than a help.
Okay, thank you. Dominic?
Yeah, just a few points really I wanted to make. Firstly, the food security debate and the national security implications, which Harold was quite right to pick up on. You know, I've been talking with various policymakers and people in the UK on this,